So, we've just got on the third episode of Series 13 of Doctor Who. Let's talk about it. I'm going to be completely honest, I thought this was a massive step back from both the first two episodes, which I quite enjoyed. If anything, in retrospect, this episode kind of makes those two feel worse, but we'll get to that. I think for me, this episode proves that Doctor Who, this series, is not committing to the serialised style of telling stories instead of the episodic style of telling stories. You see, this is supposed to be the Doctor Who Flux. It's 6 episodes, all a contained story, not episodic. However, they've definitely not committed to that because the first episode was set up, and that kind of could work in a serialised story, but then pretty much we've had 2 very much side adventures. Then that doesn't help because these 2 side adventures in episodes 2 and 3 have sometimes felt quite bogged down in trying to move the story forward, so therefore they're not committing to serialised or episodic. It hasn't really worked what they're trying to do. It's frustrating because yes, we might develop it further down the line in some of the other specials that they're doing, but we're halfway through what is being known as Doctor Who Flux, and it feels like we've done nothing. And then it's even more worrying because next week it seems like we're off on some form of Weeping Angel adventure. And again, I feel like it'll only be building on the Flux very little. It's worrying because I feel like in one episode I've become worried that this series is going off the rails. Because last week I was on quite a high because I'd had a really good Sontaran story and we were only a third of the way through the series. So, we could have built things up a little bit more. They had 4 more episodes to continue telling this story. Now, we're halfway through, really haven't gained that much more information, and we know next week is going to be about the Weeping Angels, and might not be building on it, unless the Weeping Angels are part of the whole time thing, which could be quite a cool thing to explore, and it's kind of what I'm rooting for. If we're also going to talk about not committing, this episode should have committed to 1, maybe 2 of the storylines. Because each of our 4 companions, even Camp, Vinda and the Doctor as whatever, our 4 main characters each have to have their own story, plus we've got Vinda's wife, girlfriend, Shaw, and then, we've got the ending stuff, so, we never really get any time to commit to any of these stories. I'll give the episode some quick props. All of the storyline revolving the Doctor within the time stream was cool. Again, as Doctor Who fans, we have to buy into the Timeless Child and what it'll build into that. And I think, it does some cool stuff with that. I like seeing Ruth again. Also, I think these 4 characters have a brilliant dynamic together, and I was kind of enjoying it, even though they weren't actually their own characters. It was really fun seeing them all together, and I just don't think, I think the episode could have focused in a lot more on that plotline and got some really good stuff out of it. For example, Dan and Yaz, their little plot lines get so little, and they feel really, really forced and odd and out of place, especially when you look at the episode as a whole picture. Because, for example, you leave Dan in a certain spot, and then you don't really see Dan as Dan until they're out of the situation. It's weird. The Yaz stuff seems only there to set up the Weeping Angels, which we've discussed. I don't think that's a good idea for where I see the story going, or the fact that I want to see this story go somewhere. I'm quite conflicted on how I feel about the Vinda storyline in this episode, because, yeah, it feels quite set-up-y. It feels like we're just giving this character a backstory just to develop something. But I probably was second most invested to that one compared to the Doctor one. Also, I really enjoy the actor, Jacob Anderson, and I think he's doing a really good job here. It was just a more interesting plot line, so I was a bit more forgiving to that one than, say, the Dan Yaz stuff. I mean, if I'm talking other positives, I think Jodie Whittaker gives another fantastic performance here. I think, there's some interesting stuff going on there. I'm also, kind of liking, there's clearly, like, the Doctor and Yaz clearly have some form of divide in general with how Yaz really does want to be let in, and I think there's some interesting dynamics that are being explored, and I hope they get explored properly instead of just being shooed in. So yeah, I have to admit, this wasn't my favourite episode. And it's odd, because from an episode standpoint, I don't think it's much weaker than the first, but I think I'm very down in this review, because as part of the series, I think I'm worried that we just haven't done enough yet at all, which is what I was saying, this one makes the first 2 feel worse, because if we were going to do so little in these 3 episodes, I feel like all of them needed to do a little bit more to push the story forward. Is this the end for Doctor Who Flux? No, definitely not. I think there is definitely a chance that this can go well. But not only have we been burned by Chris Chibnall building something to then make it be an incredibly either unsatisfying or just downright offensive payoff. Basically, it's tough for me to trust Chibnall after the whole Timeless Child stuff, but I really want to buy into it because, you know, I really want to look back on the Flux and feel like I have a fantastic Jodie Whittaker season instead of just some good episodes dotting around her multiple seasons. I've reviewed the other 2 episodes of Doctor Who Flux, and I'm going to be reviewing the rest of them on the day they come out, so watch those, like, subscribe, check it all out. And please feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. That being said, fuck off. I really shouldn't tell my audience to fuck off, it's incredibly rude.